And now, the Shazam ISIS Hour, Part 2, ISIS.
"O my queen," said the royal sorcerer to Hatshepsut, "with this amulet, you and your descendants are endowed by the goddess Isis with the powers of the animals and the elements. You will soar as the falcon soars, run with the speed of gazelles, and command the elements of sky and earth." 3,000 years later, a young science teacher dug up this lost treasure and found she was heir to the secrets of Isis. And so, unknown to even her closest friends, Rick Mason and Cindy Lee, she became a dual person. Andrea Thomas, teacher.
Almighty Isis.
And Isis, dedicated foe of evil, defender of the weak, champion of truth and justice.
Look up there on that branch. You see that? These trees are gone. The squirrels are probably dying of starvation.
Welcome back, my friends, to an all-new episode of the Shazam ISIS podcast. It's your old mentor, John S. Drew here, and we're continuing our journey down the highways and byways of the land, exploring those two iconic television shows of the 1970s, Shazam and The Secrets of Isis. And joining me on that never-ending journey, it seems, because they never really resolve the end of summer for Billy and Mentor, is the big red cheese himself, Mr. Richard F. Lee. Hey, Richard.
Well, hello, Dr. Drew. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been a while since we've gotten together, you and I, to do these episodes, so this is a good opportunity for us to just get a bunch of them recorded, and we'll slowly release these out to our fans who've been asking what's been going on, and it's just been a little crazy for myself to, sort of niche out the time to do this, but we're back, and we've got a bunch of episodes here to do.
Yeah, because I think all this time you were being promoted to principal of your school.
Yeah, I wish. God, you'd never hear from me again, I think, if I was the principal.
Well, if you were the principal of the school, would you be in charge of putting together a coalition of a couple of teachers and a teacher student in order to go out and solve mysteries, or what?
Well, I know I wouldn't be around very much when it came to budget discussions.
Uh-oh.
As Dr. Barnes was missing. He's referenced in this episode, we don't see him.
And that's what's interesting about how as we see this episode, how, and other episodes like it on The Secrets of Isis, how Dr. Barnes was not always in each episode, but right. He's certainly referenced a lot, and as though he's the character, off-screen character, that everybody seems to know who he is, especially of those who followed the show. They would know who Dr. Barnes was, what he looked like, even though he was never seen. He was like an important tertiary character, would you say?
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely.
So this episode is called The Outsider. Mm-hmm. And this episode aired on October 4th, 1975. And as we make this podcast, that's about 41 years ago. Now, according to the notes that were recorded or put down in the ISIS DVD, shooting on this episode began back on August 4th, 1975. So that was pretty quick turnaround time. And It was about 2 months later after shooting it, it aired, and it was shot mostly in Franklin Canyon. Now,
is that significant?
It's significant because that's where a lot of things were shot.
Okay.
A lot of things were done there, and my brain is shot as to where everything else was shot. But Franklin Canyon, hey, like yeah. My filler line is Franklin Canyon, ladies and gentlemen. Like that's supposed to mean something to us who don't really live down there.
Right. Now, before we get started, I should make one note. In the last episode of Shazam, Goodbye Packy, I said we were going to be doing Rockhound's Roost. Now, here's the thing. I've been kind of looking at the Wikipedia, which is completely off. Wikipedia in both that and IMDb list The Outsider as November 8th and actually have it listed as the 10th episode in the season. But when you go to the liner notes for the ISIS DVD set. They have The Outsider as the next episode right after in this order here. And I would tend to go with that first, thanks to the research that Andy Mangels did on putting that whole beautiful set together. So we're going with that as our next episode to review here today, The Outsider. It was written by Susan and David Dworsky, who have done episodes of, I believe, both ISIS and Shazam before. I know they definitely did Shazam before, but I'm not entirely sure about ISIS, but definitely they've been writing for Filmation. And we've once again got the return of Hollingsworth Morse as our director for this episode. Now, who have we got for guest casts?
Well, this guest cast features a number of actors, very much like what we would see on Shazam from time to time. You would see a few guest actors, maybe a couple of guest actors, or you'd see several guest actors. Mm-hmm. And this episode has 5 guest actors. The guest cast consists of Mitch Vogal playing Wayne Moss, Morgan Jones as Mr. Tilden, Harry Hickox as Mr. Winstead, and Wirt Morton as Charlie Michaels, and Anson Downs as Phil Hobbes. Now, not really knowing the whole careers of these particular actors, I just wanted to take a step back for a second. You know, we think about all these actors. We might have spotted them before, having done something else. And a lot of these actors, they don't really ring a bell with me right now. I know that they've done other things, but I think it might even be strange. I throw this out to our podcast audience, that maybe these actors, the best thing they'll be remembered for would be The Secrets of ISIS, when you think about it, John, because Secrets of ISIS has a cult following, and there are other shows that are, in many respects, maybe prime time, maybe some stage play somewhere, who knows, that don't garner the kind of attention that a show like The Secrets of ISIS would have, because ISIS is a superheroine, and that seems to attract a lot of attention, especially in our day and age when fantasy superheroes have more respect than ever before. What do you think, John?
It's possible, yeah. I would agree.
Mm-hmm. And also, I wanted to say, before we move into the review of the episode itself, that if you have, for those in podcast land, if you have a copy of the DVD of The Secrets of ISIS that was released a few years back, which unfortunately is not in production right now, if you are fortunate enough to have one set, that you go to the bonus disc and you will see an interview with David Dworsky. And Susan is not present. She's still around, but she was not present for the interview. But David Dworsky, and how they came up with some of the ideas and how they wrote a number of episodes for The Secrets of ISIS, a collaborative team, a husband and wife team, to write these episodes. And of course, we're privileged now to look at The Outsider, which is one of these episodes that they did. And it's about, in any story, whether you're watching an episode of Secrets of ISIS or Shazam or something else, it's about how you get a diverse group of characters interacting with each other, and how those interactions are put from a script and put on screen.
Well put. We open this episode of the show, and we see that Andrea and Cindy are moving things about the classroom.
We'll put the old aquarium over here, so there's plenty of room on that table. Okay. How about these books? On the shelf under the window, and put these with them so there's plenty of room for that new microscope.
I'll help you in a minute. I'm still busy with these books.
Right.
And I love this. Andrea comments about how lazy Tut is.
If you weren't such a lazy bird, you'd help us.
Lazy bird.
You sure are.
And this shot, maybe it was my TV or something, but I never realized just how big Tut is as a bird until I saw him in the foreground in this shot. And I was like, my God, he's huge.
He's huge. He's a big bird. That's true. But comments on how lazy Tut is, what do you expect the bird to do? What is he supposed to do? He's lazy.
Did it seem to you, though, that when Andrea was walking past him, that Joanna Cameron looked a little nervous getting that close to Tut? I know she said in interviews that she didn't like the bird.
Oh, hey, bird lives matter, okay? I don't know why she would have a big issue with the bird. Now, I will relate now, and I hope in the future that we still get to do this. I will relate in my interview with Lou Scheimer that Lou Scheimer said that he had problems with the bird. Yeah, and he thought the bird was a pain in the neck. I think it's tough when you're shooting anything with children and animals. That's what the conventional wisdom of the set is, I suppose, what directors and what actors will say. Trying to film something with children and animals. And one of the things that I think of, and maybe it's something that we don't think about anymore because everything is done digitally nowadays, but back in these times when ISIS was filmed on 16 millimeter film, if you blew a shot, you wasted film. And a bird can not always act the way you want it to act, or any other animal for that matter. It's not going to act on cue.
Right.
So I can see how directors and producers and even actors would not really like having a bird around or some other animal that has to be in a lot of scenes. It's not as though the bird is only occasionally around. Tut was around a lot in these episodes, John.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. I mean, he was, in some cases, also not just something cute like here where it's, oh, you're so lazy, but he was integral to saving the day.
Yeah. In fact, Tut was the Wesley Crusher of the Secrets of ISIS. He was saving the day a lot.
Yeah.
He was the messenger to ISIS. We're going to see later on in the crossover episodes of Shazam and ISIS, Tut calls upon Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Tut is used a lot.
Yeah,
and so I think this bird needs to be given some credit. The bird handler needs to be given some credit for this. I was on the set of Boy Meets World back in 1999 with William Daniels and a whole host of other actors on that show. And the episode that I was in as an extra working as a customer in the foreground, not even in the background, as a customer at a bank, involved, I kid you not, the use of monkeys, at least 2 of them on the set.
Right.
They were fully dressed. And they would call on these monkeys to go back and forth on the scene, and the audience was, I think, getting a little tired of it too because they had to shoot the scenes with the monkeys over and over, and it took hours to get a couple of shots in the can. And the monkeys were actually well behaved. They were not rowdy or any way, but they had handlers for these monkeys.
Right.
And the monkeys would mimic the actions of their handlers. And we had to be very quiet and calm because we did not want to distract these animals while on the set, and their presence was necessary to carry out the scene that was written in the script. But that was a long day, I recall. And so you got to imagine that even though Tut does not do as much as a trained monkey, that he's in a lot of scenes on the Secrets of ISIS.
Yeah.
And they're using a lot of 16 millimeter film with Tut and with the other actors, the human performers, trying to memorize, having their lines memorized, trying to act out their scenes in character with knowing that a bird is on the set that could screw up the whole scene.
Yeah.
So in this scene, Rick Mason enters and he has Andrea's request for new equipment. Now, according to Andrea Thomas, she's buying this because of the new student whose name is Wayne Moss. Now, according to Andrea, he knows more about biology than any student that Andrea has ever taught. Now, this is a great way to introduce a backstory of a character without putting the character on screen yet, where you have the main cast member, the star of the show, talking, in essence, saying to the audience and cheating out to the audience, for this episode this week, we're going to meet a new character. And instead of doing it to the audience, to their face and breaking the fourth wall, she does it with Rick Mason and does it with Cindy Lee and says,
he is the best biology student I've ever had. He knows more about plants and animals than any other boy or girl I've ever taught.
The rest of us could learn from him.
Right.
I don't think Dr. Barnes is going to go for this. The school budget's very tight this year. But he does have the final decision.
It's just that Wayne Moss is a very special student.
Look, the other kids aren't going to listen to Wayne. Not as long as they think of him as an outsider or some kind of freak from the mountains.
So Geez, the more a student knows, that justifies using the school budget to purchase more equipment for the class? Huh? Is this how it's done, John?
Not that I'm aware of. But then again, I never have those great students.
I don't understand that. Okay, whatever. We let it pass. So Rick Mason says that the other students aren't going to listen to Wayne as long as he's thought of as, dun, 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 an outsider.
Yeah.
Hence the title to this episode.
Yep. Yeah. So Wayne, we finally meet him, and we see he's kind of got that hillbilly look going there with the plaid shirt and the hat on and everything and the reddish hair and all, and he definitely stands out from the other kids. And he's approached by two students who tease him. And it's interesting because you wonder at first what's the deal with him. He never says a word to them.
He doesn't.
No.
He doesn't. In fact, he looks like, appropriately so, really PO'd here, John.
Well, he looks angry. He definitely does. But it's like, dude, say something. Tell him get lost, buzz off. Nothing. And it's only when he's called away by Andrea that, this sort of breaks up. Okay. So these two students, Charlie and Phil, decide to sort of, when they see that they really don't get Wayne's goat, so to speak, they decide they're going to do something else. They're going to steal the West Side High mascot, this raccoon, and make it look like Wayne did it.
Yeah, now, that's a cool pun you said. Let's steal his goat.
Yeah.
Now, I got to admit, we're pretty early in the episode yet. We haven't gotten to fashion statements yet, but I can't let this go. They're really playing up the hillbilly aspect of Wayne's character here.
Oh, sure.
They're overdoing it. I mean, okay, I gotta confess, I dressed like that when I was in grade school. Okay.
Really? Okay.
It looked awkward. All right. But I wasn't made fun of for wearing straw hats and bib overalls. But I wasn't even from a farm. I just like to dress that way. I have lots of therapy under my belt, friends. Oh dear. So you're right. They decide to steal the other rival team's mascot. Now, why would even if these two characters are making fun of this outsider, why would they just come up with the idea to steal a mascot from the other team and blame him for it? That's a very strange way to haze a kid. I suppose it's possible, but that's a strange way to haze somebody. In the meantime, Andrea wants to take Wayne to talk to Dr. Barnes. Once again, a reference to Dr. Barnes about the new lab equipment. So this must be the new lab equipment that she's willing to spend the school budget on because he's such a brilliant student. So do the teachers take the smartest students to the principal or the budgeting director and butter him up so the school spends more? Huh? John, you're a teacher. Do you do this?
No, I as I said, but first of all, I don't have any students that I'd stick my neck out like that for.
Ooh. Do your students listen to our podcast, John?
Some of them do. I'm led to believe.
Oh dear, you know what this means, John. This is, if you're a fan of The Simpsons and you've seen a lot of the old episodes, this is the equivalent of Principal Skinner talking with Edna Krabappel and saying, Edna, we know these kids have no future. And all the kids in dead silence look at him. Prove me wrong, kids. Prove me wrong. So there's no student you would go out on a limb for and go to administration, say, we need better equipment because we have such brilliant, stellar students.
Right.
Oh, dear. Okay. So Wayne admits that he doesn't like the city life. Now, I just mentioned in a prior review of another episode of Shazam that we talked about recently, how it seems as though there's a lot of episodes from the 1970s, whether primetime shows or even Shazam, that used rural settings as a springboard to the story and the characters. In this episode, and in many episodes of ISIS, it's an urban setting. It's urban. You have a public school, a high school, but here you have a digression from the urban setting, from the school to a rural setting of some kind, or just the countryside away from the city, where our guest character, Wayne, likes to go to. So we can only assume that this can't be too far away from the city. It for story purposes, it can't be too far away. But this character and what he is has to take us away from the urban environment that normally the Secrets of ISIS would take place in. So now he doesn't like the concrete, he doesn't like the smog, and he takes off. And so, what was it? Cindy Lee guesses that he must be off to the old Wilson property, we're told it is.
Yeah.
Where he hangs out at the pond alone. And then another thing that we've noticed in these episodes, this is a pattern now with Cindy Lee's character. She seems to know a lot about where students hang out.
Hey, Cindy Lee's cool.
She is cool, and she's also psychic. Cindy Lee seems to know where the guest student of the week hangs out and her friends. And we never see these students again, John. We never see them. They're students of the week.
Yeah. But that's how you create the drama for the series.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And wouldn't it be better to do it that way than I mean, I think what you're getting at is maybe we should have had more regular students that rotated and things happen. But then you get into things where it's like they start doing things for the sake of the story that are uncharacteristic, like Cindy Lee climbing a wall into a junkyard on a dare, which just seems incredibly unlike her, even that early in the series.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know if in that particular episode, is it because the writers didn't quite flesh out who the Cindy Lee character was supposed to be yet, and that was really an early episode?
Yeah.
Or they had it in mind as to what they wanted her to be? Thoughts, John?
I would actually say, like you said, they didn't have it fleshed out, because wasn't that like the first episode?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly the case, is that they probably pinned her as someone younger, and as we quickly see, oh no, she's much older.
Now, one thing I actually liked about the direction of the series here, that the Dworskis, when they wrote this one, they didn't fall into a trap that I think that some TV shows fall into, where you have a third wheel, a third character who's not really the star of the show, but just someone who's a supplemental character, supporting character. You didn't have her getting into trouble every week like you saw her get into the junkyard the first time around, Fool's Dare.
Right.
You had that happen basically as an isolated incident. It wasn't predictable. What you had as the theme of the Secrets of ISIS were usually students, guest casts, getting into trouble or having a moral crisis or dilemma, and eventually ISIS coming along and rescuing them. But Cindy is used as a character, I don't know if you'd call it a catalyst or not, maybe that's not the right use of the word, where she's the one who can connect Andrea Thomas and Rick Mason to that guest character and say, I know all about him. I know where he hangs out. I know what he does. Let me go find him.
Right.
To get the story along, rather than Cindy always being at the center of attention where she's the one getting in trouble and they always have to lecture her at the end. I'm glad that the writers got away from that.
So Cindy finds Wayne, and we see that he knows his way around plants. He points out that actually there's a lot of things people don't notice, which is a nice little sort of nod to, the overall theme of this story. In fact, it even sounds like something the elders would tell Billy as he's talking, which I kind of liked there. Wayne frees a trapped duck and sends it off to join its family. And Cindy tells him how Andrea thinks he's a very rare student, which, cheers him up a lot. And that's when he offers to show her a family of owls, and they head off to go look at the owls.
Yeah, that's interesting that you have Cindy, who we really don't know. Is she a teacher's assistant? What is her place here? Because Joanna Pang Atkins could not really tell us what her character actually was in relation to Rick and to Andrea. Was she a friend? Was she a subordinate student? Was she an equal? Was she a peer? Was she not a peer? But here you have her telling the guest character that, hey, the teacher really likes you and thinks of you as an exceptional student, and it's not the teacher herself doing it. So you could see that, in a way, Wayne is teacher's pet for this week.
Yeah.
Teacher's pet. I got to admit, John, I was teacher's pet too. When I was in second grade, I don't know why, I was teacher's pet. I don't think my second grade teacher took any other student out for his birthday when they had birthdays, okay? But my teacher took me out for my birthday and wanted to be nice to me. I don't know why. I was teacher's pet in second grade, so help me God. Now, nowadays, in today's pretty perverse world, teacher's pet has a lot of different meaning in high schools, right, John?
Right. Well, yeah.
and such cases that involves a serious indictment.
Yeah.
But in this case, no. The guest student of the week, Wayne, yeah, he's teacher's pet, and we're given a reason. He knows biology better than any other student that she's had so far.
Right. Yeah.
Now, looking at this, I think there's no doubt that this is where the Bigfoot episodes of the $6 Million Man were filmed. Now, you're the expert on 6 Million, and I went back and reviewed the Bigfoot episodes for myself recently. It looks kind of like the same area.
It kind of does, except it seems like there's more clearing in the area. It doesn't seem as densely, with the trees and stuff. So I don't know, to be perfectly honest.
So next we see Andrea holding a bunch of books walking with Rick Mason. Now, he only helps her load the books into her car at the last second. He doesn't even help her carry the books. No chivalry here. Now, he comments that Dr. Barnes, again, a reference to Dr. Barnes off screen, it's a form of economical writing because Dr. Barnes is a semi-regular character on The Secrets of ISIS that we've seen a numerous amount of times. And we're told that Dr. Barnes got a call from the principal of the rival school, Westside High, that someone stole the team's mascot. That was the raccoon that we heard about earlier in the episode now. Now, Dr. Barnes, once again, is mentioned, and he's not seen. Again, economy of writing, I want to reiterate. Now, the suspect, we're told, was wearing jeans and a straw hat. It could be Wayne. Oh, dear. Now, this scene establishes that it was the same day that Andrea spoke to him. Now, Andrea says she was told by Cindy that he hangs out at the old Wilson place and says she will check it out. Now, dear, this is where it gets a little messy for me. Wait a minute. Wouldn't Wayne, therefore, have an alibi?
Yeah.
Wouldn't he have an alibi? Everybody knows. Cindy Lee knows where he is. Now, in today's world, this wouldn't be much of a problem because Wayne would likely have updated his Facebook status, and it says he's feeding ducks at the pond with Cindy Lee and tag her. But then again, who knows?
Now, we cut to the boys, and they've got the raccoon, and it's not looking too healthy, especially considering it served them, or they served it, a days-old sandwich. They go, give it another half. It's like, yeah, let's just make this worse.
Yeah. I mean, that is so... I know this is fiction, but that really makes me feel uncomfortable, okay?
Yeah.
Mistreating this poor raccoon like that, and I can tell that the raccoon in real life did not want to stay in that cage.
Yeah.
So the next we see Cindy and Wayne still at the pond. They seem awful fond of holding hands, okay?
Yeah.
I'm sure this is a platonic relationship, but I don't go around holding hands with everybody that I'm walking through. Okay, what were they trying to convey? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe Cindy thought she was going to get lucky.
Well, that'll happen in the next episode. Yeah. Oh, dear. Oh. This is... We're talking about a 41-year-old television show, John. And we're talking about all things about inappropriate behavior with teachers and students and TAs and all these kinds of things. That wouldn't happen for a couple more decades, John.
Right.
Back in those days, no one did anything wrong.
That's true.
And if you believe that, I have some oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you. So now we see that Wayne points out where the owls would be. Now he's distracted by what appears to be a new housing development.
Right.
Wayne goes off and he says,
Cindy, do you know what this means? They put houses here and all those trees are going to be gone. Just look at those trees.
Couldn't the cameraman have found better trees?
Up there on that branch. You see that?
They look like they deserve to be cleared.
These trees are gone. Those squirrels will probably die of starvation. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm not going to let them do it. Oh, sure, I just ain't going to let it happen. Well, come on, aren't you going to help me knock it down?
We can't, Wayne. That's not the way.
Wayne goes off and jumps on a tractor.
Yeah, I'll do it myself.
He's determined to start up the tractor and to bulldoze the signs, I suppose.
Yeah.
Now, he ends up spinning Brodies in the dirt and says that the controls are frozen.
Wayne, listen. This land belongs to someone else. You've got no right.
It's like what they call spinning donuts or Brodies when you're spinning in circles.
Right.
And it won't work, and Cindy ends up telling him to jump off that thing. It's out of control. You don't know what you're doing. You can't control it. And he goes, oh, the controls are frozen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
That's when Andrea pulls up in her car and sees the trouble. She makes the change to Isis. Now, I thought this was interesting. She casts a spell that lightens the boulder, or a boulder.
Oh, mighty Isis.
Gravity from this rock be still. Let me roll it up the hill.
Which she then is able to, like, basically push up a hill. And I don't mean like she's walking with it. She gives it a shove, and it goes rolling up the hill. It gets in front of the bulldozer, slowing it down. And then I guess we don't see or hear anything. There's no, like, magical sound effect. But she's kind of, like, putting her hands out, and the dozer stops. You know, it was a little oddly directed, I thought, that last bit. Everything else was fine, even the paper mache boulder that she pushes up the hill, but and that's when the foreman shows up as we come to the end of Act 1.
Now, in this, how would you have done the scene differently? He's out of
just a sound effect. That's all I'm saying. Everything was fine up until the very end. Then it was this fast. Okay, the dozer cuts out, and I just happened to wonder: was it her doing more magic? Was she controlling it with telekinesis? What was the deal, or did it just lose steam? Just something to that effect would have conveyed the message a little better. Like, the thread is over, instead of the abruptness of it. That's all. Mm-hmm. Minor thing, really.
Yeah, it's a minor thing, and I can only assume that it would have run out of steam and do that.
Right.
Now, that is one huge boulder. The boulder looks realistic. It looks realistic to me, even though it's obviously a paper mache, a fake boulder. But one of the flaws of shows like this is that these boulders tend to be by themselves a lot.
Yeah.
They're not in a bunch of other rock with a bunch of other rocks. They're by themselves, and they're huge.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we start with Act 2.
Now, in Act 2, Isis disappears really fast.
Yeah.
And Andrea comes up right behind Wayne. Now, that's pretty quick. Oh, dear. Yeah, that's fast. You would think that, well, Isis and Andrea, they're never seen at the same time, but one seems to follow after the other.
Right.
Oh, well. So anyway, laying that aside, Wayne insists that the foreman should not be or can't be building houses there. But, like it or not, that's the plan. Now, he says this pond is special. Now, Rick Mason also joins them. Now, he got there pretty quick.
Yeah.
He got there fast, too.
Yeah, he did.
We can only assume that he's following close behind Andrea. And he maybe got stuck in traffic for the commercial break. We don't know, but he gets there pretty quick.
Well, isn't there something we can do?
Something other than busting down signs with bulldozers.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there are legal ways to handle things. We can file an environmental impact report. That's an ecology study.
Well, I'm afraid it's too late for that. The blueprints have been approved by the City Building Commission. I've got a work crew coming in tomorrow. Matter of fact, I was supposed to drain the pond this afternoon.
When I was 8 years old, what was an environmental report? That's a big word for an 8-year-old kid to comprehend.
Well, yeah.
I like the adult touch to this, though, John.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a nice little touch, but you're right. For the 8-year-old, you're kind of like, what?
Yeah, like, what? Am I going to care? You know, it is a nice touch because now, as an adult, we can go back and watch these and maybe appreciate there's some depth to the storytelling because these stories, I think an adult can be entertained by watching these shows. I don't think it's just for kids.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I think an adult can appreciate some of the human interaction and some of the big words like environmental report. I think they can appreciate that.
I agree.
But the supervisor says it's too late for such a thing. He says the work crew is coming in and the pond is set to be drained that afternoon. Now, Wayne gives him a lecture on birds coming in from miles. Now, the sentimental music plays. Like, oh, geez. Part of this is going a little too much for me. Yeah. He's telling him about all the birds flying in for miles, and the supervisor said he has to get this dynamite ready. Now, the head of the project is a guy named Mr. Winstead. Now, he bought this land, we're told, but he happens to have spent no time there, and Wednesday is his golf day. Now, there's a lot of, how do you know, what would you call it, John? Cliches built into this little scene?
Oh, yeah.
Lots of cliches. You got this insensitive anti-environmentalist guy who's only in it to make profits off of a giant set of housing tracts, and he happens to be playing golf.
Well, now be fair, you say anti-environmentalist, but then when the showings of, Wayne's findings and such by Rick, he seems pretty impressed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. He's converted by the gospel. Yeah, it's, my God, it just works just perfectly, doesn't it? But no, we don't even get to that yet because now the two guys are running up with the sick raccoon. Tell us about that, John.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They're like, oh my gosh, look, it's not doing well. Although it seems to be pretty active in the cage still, like you were pointing out. They need Wayne's help.
Yeah, they need Wayne's help in the story, but the raccoon is thinking to himself, my agent didn't promise me that I'd get paid much for this. Get me out of here.
But it's a nice deal because Wayne uses his knowledge, which we talked about earlier, of plants to put together a concoction to help with the food poisoning that the raccoon has developed.
Wayne, I guess, is going to come up with an idea of making a concoction from the plant life in the area. Meanwhile, Mr. Winstead, did you know that the character named Winstead was used in the episode of Shazam called Little Boy Lost?
Oh, was that the guy who sold the bikes?
No, it was the father of the mute boy, Mr.
Oh,
Winstead.
that was his name. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking that, is this a coincidence, or was there someone by the name of Winstead that the writers wanted to honor by putting his name in a couple of scripts? I don't know.
Possible.
Yeah. So we see that Mr. Winstead reads Wayne's field notes that Rick Mason brought to him. And he admits, well, I didn't know all this happens. I didn't know there was all this wildlife. He admits the pond supports a lot of wildlife, and he's convinced, by golly, that the development can't go forward. Yeah. He tells Rick to tell the foreman, Mr. Tilden, to stop the project. Wait a minute. Wouldn't that be Mr. Winstead's call to make? Yeah. Rick Mason has no authority to do that. Yeah, Mr. Winstead said you should stop the project. No. It don't work that way. Oh, God. So Rick Mason rushes back in the days before quick cell phones, and he tells the rest that the news that Mr. Winstead will stop the project, it's almost 4 o'clock and the dynamite will be ready to blow. But pause this for just a second. When they hear that, the characters run off, and only Andrea and Cindy are left there to talk to themselves.
Wait a minute, the dynamite, it's nearly 4 o'clock. Come on.
Go.
They may not make it.
If that dynamite goes off...
You stay here with Raleigh. I'll try to catch them.
This location looks really familiar, and I don't mean the $6 Million Man Bigfoot episode. It looks almost like where that Shazam episode was filmed with Freddy Krueger.
Oh, mighty Isis.
Remember the delinquent? Jackie Earl Haley was in that episode. It looks like the approximate location where the bear is about to drive him into the water. So I'm telling you, this is a small universe. They use the same locations.
So the group get to the foreman, but it's already too late. He's set off the fuse, and that's when Isis arrives and flies over to the dynamite, grabbing it and hurling it away. And you had a problem with this.
Hey, hold off. Don't blow up the dam. We talked to your boss.
Now, stay back here. It's too late.
It's too late, but the barn can stay. Your boss said so.
It's too late.
It can't be too late. I gotta get the dynamite.
All right, Wayne, I can't let you go out there. Wait. It's Isis.
Oh, zephyr winds which blow on high, lift me now so I can fly.
I have a problem with a few things. The foreman lights the fuse. That fuse is going really, really fast. Okay. And Isis is flying way the heck up there. And then she lands. She manages to get to the dynamite and grabs it out of the rock and throws it. Where does she throw it to? That's a lot of debris heading their way, and we see stock footage debris, and everybody ducks because they don't want to be hit. Now, she probably threw it in the right place where it wouldn't cause a lot of damage. Now, it's a good thing she did not throw it in the water.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Mason. Thank you. Sir, thanks a lot.
I left Raleigh by the train. I saw it.
How about that Isis? Now, what a throw. She could pitch for our team anytime.
Where is everyone?
Over here.
Is everyone all right? Oh, I heard a terrible explosion. Where were you?
You missed it, Andrea. I mean, Isis flew. It was incredible.
What happened? Did you get lost?
I did. I get lost in the woods.
He can teach you everything you want to know about the woods. From now on, old Wayne Moss is part of our gang.
Well, just don't go around stealing any more raccoons, huh?
Okay.
Okay, look. Stunts. I don't know what's going on here. We said we were going to do stunts and stuff, and in those last few episodes, there's really been nothing to talk about.
No, there sure hasn't.
No.
Stunts. All right. So what happens? She throws dynamite.
Yeah.
That's not a stunt.
And she's not really throwing dynamite. She's throwing a stick. And then we get stock footage of dynamite.
Precisely. Yeah. So I don't know what you'd say. No stunts here.
No stunts. That's it.
No stunts.
Yeah. What about the fashion statement?
Well, Wayne's outfit may still be worn in Nebraska somewhere. I think that for the most part, the outfits that the characters wore, they don't appear dated, except for, again, Cindy Lee wearing the bib overalls in several episodes. What was the point of her wearing the bib overalls?
I don't know.
I think you remember that I asked Joanna Pang Atkins that question. Why do they put the character in bib overalls?
Yeah.
And again, I think that when they took this character, Wayne, they wanted to make him an outsider. They wanted to make him a hillbilly look out there, just so it would establish and set up for the people watching that this person did not quite fit in, but he was actually very smart. I think that the wardrobe department really exaggerated his look, John.
Mm-hmm.
They overdid it to make him really look out of place.
For some reason, though, I had this distinct memory of this episode that he also went around without shoes. I mean, clearly it didn't happen, but I don't know why I had that vision.
Maybe you're thinking of a Little Abner cartoon.
Maybe. Oh, man.
We will return to ISIS after these messages.
Who's the kid with all the friends hanging around? Kid with a snowman, snow cone, put an ice cube in and got a snow cone out. Kid with a snowman, snow cone
Snowman snow cone machine comes with 5 different flavors.
Give me orange. I want lime.
You're the kids are looking sweet and cool. Kids with the snowman snow cone.
You can make 5 different kinds of snow cones with the snow cone machine from Hasbro.
I get hot and thirsty riding a skateboard. Me too. This is a job for Kool-Aid. Hey, Kool-Aid!
Oh, yeah. Kool-Aid's here, bringing you fun. Kool-Aid's got thirst on the run. Get a big, wide, happy ear.
And there's Kool-Aid smile. Tastes great. Our friend's cool. Our friend's Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid brand soft drink mix.
Oh, yeah.
And now, back to ISIS.
All right, so the moral. All right, this was not available in the DVD set. We're going to find that there's 1 or 2 more from the first season not available, and there's almost none from the second season available. So we're kind of making this one up as we go along. Basically things like you can't judge a book by its cover, or it's a way a person acts, not how he looks. That's what counts. I mean, that's sort of the takeaway we got, right?
Yeah, I think that is. I think that is a fairly accurate way to summarize this particular episode. It is teaching that lesson, and I would walk away from that if I hadn't seen the moral as a kid or whatever it is, and the moral is long lost, not in the DVD extras apparently. That we would have to make that inference as that's what this moral is about from this episode.
Right. Now, the question is, does it hold up?
Yes, it holds up. I think the moral does hold up. If that's what the moral is supposed to be, I think it holds up.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does hold up. And overall, I'm actually very fond of this episode. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 5 tuts, I'm going to say it right out. I like this one so much, I would go 5 out of 5. What about you?
Well, I think it's 4 out of 5. It's a good story. It moves quick. You have decent characters. You like the characters.
Yeah.
I think that the 2 students come around and realize that what they did was wrong as far as kidnapping the raccoon and blaming it on him. And they turn around and they have a little minor character arc, which isn't central to the story at all, where they actually come clean. And that's good. It's a decent story. I think it's a little preachy. So are all of these stories. There's some environmental propaganda, and the far left and the far right can fight about these kinds of things. I do think it's a little bit propagandizing. It's not entirely unreasonable in its theme. I think it's fair to discuss those kinds of things. But at the same time, no, I think it's going a little too far on the propaganda angle. I want to watch a story that's more escapist. I don't mind a good moral to it, but some of that goes a little too much, and it takes me out of the escapist element of the story. It's a good story, though. I still have to rate it 4 out of 5 tuts. It's good.
Now, why did you say, though, that this was like science fiction, though, in a way?
Well, because would environmentalists and capitalist developers really get along that well? Gee, I didn't know there was a snail darter there. By God, I'm going to quit what I'm doing and forget about all the investment and the money that we put into this project because we got to save that snail darter. No, there would be federal lawsuit after federal lawsuit, court injunctions back and forth. It would not be this harmonious.
Right.
And it would be nice if people who are environmentalists and conservationists would be able to work with developers, and there'd be a balance between the advancement of a population growth and maintaining some type of clean environment and having some respect for trees and for natural habitats. There has to be a balance in there somewhere, and I think that there are folks in our municipal and county governments that do work towards those ends. But I think that this is just a little too much on the fiction side.
Okay. So overall, though, not a bad, review, not a bad little episode. Nice to be back doing these, right?
Yes, it is. It is nice to be back and looking at ISIS.
Yeah. And our next episode, we're back to Shazam, more specifically Captain Marvel. Do you know, Explain something to me now. I saw this the other day that there's some people saying DC can say Captain Marvel. There's nothing stopping them from putting it even on a cover of a comic. Is this true?
I think that I'm judging only on what I know of the past.
Right.
They cannot label the character Captain Marvel on merchandise or in the cover of a comic as these are the adventures of Captain Marvel, but they can say the words Captain Marvel on the cover and say the original Captain Marvel or something like that, because they did that with DC back in the early 1970s when DC got the rights to the character, but they did not move fast enough to save the name, and they had to market it under Shazam or something else for that matter.
Gotcha.
So they can say the words Captain Marvel, but they're not supposed to label the character that in merchandise. Now, what's weird is that they're getting around this by renaming the character Shazam, because people who never knew better just call him Shazam anyway.
Right.
And I agree with Neil Adams on this. Neil Adams was the great artist, DC Comics artist who did Batman in the 70s. I know his artwork as a kid. And he said that it's not fair to do that to the character. The character is Captain Marvel. It's not Shazam. He doesn't like the messing with the mythos. And I got to hand it to Neil Adams for standing up for the integrity of what the character was originally supposed to be.
All right. Well, in any event, Captain Marvel is back in our next episode. He comes to the rescue of a dog in a fire. And when Billy later spots the dog at the home of a young boy, he must convince him to tell the truth on who or what caused the fire. We've got Danny Bonaducci guest starring on the next episode of Shazam. We'll be reviewing Speak No Evil. So until next time, folks, thank you so much for listening. Once again, Richard, everyone, take care.
Take care, and like us on Facebook and give us your comments.